Lisa and Robert's love story began like a scene from a fairy tale. Robert was a charismatic businessman whose charm seemed to light up every room he entered. Lisa, on the other hand, was a quiet yet determined woman who left her promising career as a graphic designer to build a home filled with warmth and care. Together, they were admired as the perfect couple. Their home, a cozy suburban house with a white picket fence, symbolized the dreams they had cultivated together. In the early years of their marriage, Lisa found immense joy in supporting Robert. She threw herself into creating an inviting home, hosting dinner parties for Robert's colleagues, and maintaining a garden that seemed to bloom in sync with her cheerful spirit. She adored the quiet moments when they would sit on the porch, sipping tea and planning their future. Robert often told Lisa that her sacrifices allowed him to focus on his career, and she took pride in being his foundation. But as Robert's business flourished, subtle changes crept into their relationship. His compliments grew sparse, replaced by an unspoken expectation that Lisa would always be there to cater to his needs. Her efforts to celebrate his successes went unnoticed, while his focus shifted entirely to his career. Lisa brushed off her growing unease, convincing herself that she was imagining things. After all, she was still the woman Robert had chosen to share his life with. Then came the parties, lavish events where Robert reveled in the admiration of his peers. Lisa often found herself fading into the background, a stark contrast to the vibrant, ambitious women who mingled with ease. The first time Robert dismissed her in public, it was subtle. A slight laugh at her expense, a playful jab about her cushy life at home. Lisa forced a smile, but her chest tightened. For the first time, she felt like an accessory rather than a partner. As the months passed, the jabs grew sharper. Robert began to question Lisa's contributions, often joking about how easy her life was compared to his. "Must be nice, staying home and watching soap operas all day," he teased one evening as his colleagues laughed. Lisa's cheeks burned with embarrassment, but she held her tongue. She convinced herself that Robert didn't mean to hurt her and that perhaps she wasn't doing enough to deserve his respect. Lisa couldn't shake the sting of Robert's words. What hurt most was not the humiliation but the realization that she had begun to lose herself in the shadow of her marriage. The bright, ambitious woman who once dreamed of starting her own design studio now felt like a ghost of her former self. Her days, once filled with creativity, had become a monotonous cycle of chores and self-doubt. Determined to regain a sense of purpose, Lisa suggested that she take a few art classes at the local community center. She had no plans of returning to work but hoped the classes would reignite the passion she had buried for so long. Robert, however, scoffed at the idea. "What's the point?" he asked dismissively. "It's not like you're going to start a career at this age. Why waste the money?" Robert's words cut deep, but they also awakened something within Lisa. She enrolled in the classes anyway, using the savings she had secretly tucked away over the years. For the first time in a long while, Lisa felt a flicker of excitement. She spent hours experimenting with colors and textures, pouring her emotions onto the canvas. Each brushstroke felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. The community art classes quickly became Lisa's sanctuary. Each session offered her a chance to escape the weight of Robert's constant belittling. Her classmates were supportive and encouraging, often praising her raw talent. Lisa began to dream of showcasing her work, though she kept these thoughts to herself. Sharing her progress with Robert seemed futile, as he dismissed her efforts as a hobby. One evening, Robert hosted a networking event at their home. The house buzzed with laughter and the clinking of glasses as Robert charmed his guests. Lisa floated quietly through the room, ensuring everything ran smoothly. But her presence went largely unnoticed until Robert decided to make her the center of attention, for all the wrong reasons. As a guest inquired about Lisa's activities, Robert smirked and announced, "She's been dabbling in art lately. It's cute, really. Like finger painting for adults." Laughter rippled through the room, and Lisa felt a wave of humiliation crash over her. She forced a smile, her hands trembling as she gripped her glass. That night, as Robert continued entertaining, Lisa retreated to her studio. She sat amidst her unfinished canvases, fighting back tears. The world she had built around Robert was crumbling, but deep within her, a spark of defiance began to grow. Lisa immersed herself in her artwork, using the hurt and frustration as fuel. She avoided Robert's gatherings and late-night dinners, choosing instead to pour her energy into creating pieces that spoke of resilience and hope. Her canvases were vibrant and full of emotion, a stark contrast to the gray routine of her life with Robert. Despite her progress, Lisa's self-doubt lingered. The memory of that humiliating night haunted her, and she often questioned whether her art was worth pursuing. Still, she couldn't bring herself to stop. Each completed piece felt like a step toward rediscovering her identity. Lisa's talent did not go unnoticed in her art class. Her instructor, a seasoned artist named Clara, was particularly impressed with Lisa's ability to convey raw emotion through her work. One day, Clara pulled her aside after class. "Lisa, have you considered submitting your paintings to a gallery?" she asked. Lisa hesitated, her self-doubt bubbling to the surface. "I don't think I'm good enough," she replied. Clara shook her head firmly. "Art is not about perfection. It's about connection, and your work speaks volumes." Encouraged by Clara's words, Lisa decided to take a leap of faith. She selected 3 of her favorite pieces and submitted them to a local gallery's open call. It was a small gallery, but its exhibitions were well regarded in the community. Days turned into weeks, and Lisa convinced herself she had been rejected. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, an email arrived. Her work had been accepted. The day of the exhibition was both thrilling and terrifying. Lisa dressed modestly, wanting to blend into the crowd. As she entered the gallery, her heart raced at the sight of her paintings hanging on the walls. A small plaque next to each piece read "Anonymous Artist," as Lisa had chosen to keep her identity hidden for fear of judgment. Guests wandered through the exhibition, murmuring appreciations of her work. One couple stood in front of a piece titled "Resilience," discussing the layers of emotion it conveyed. Lisa felt a surge of pride she hadn't experienced in years. For the first time, she saw her art through someone else's eyes, not as a frivolous pastime, but as something meaningful. Word about the exhibition spread, and Lisa's paintings began to attract attention. The gallery owner called her to share the good news: a local art dealer had purchased all 3 pieces. "They want to meet you," the owner said. Lisa declined, insisting on remaining anonymous. She wasn't ready to reveal herself, not to the art world, and certainly not to Robert. As Lisa continued to produce and sell her work under the alias LM, her confidence grew. She rented a small studio space with her earnings, creating a sanctuary where she could paint freely. This double life was liberating, though it required careful planning to keep her secret from Robert. She knew that if he discovered her success, he would dismiss it as a fluke, or worse, try to claim credit for her achievements. One day, while working in her studio, Lisa received a message from Clara. It included a link to an article about a rising artist whose work had been featured in multiple galleries. To Lisa's shock, the article was about her. "Your pieces are touching lives," Clara wrote. Keep going. Reading the article, Lisa felt a mix of pride and fear. The praise was intoxicating, but the risk of exposure loomed over her. Still, she couldn't deny the joy she felt knowing that her art was making an impact. It was a validation she had never received in her marriage, a reminder that her worth extended far beyond her role as Robert's wife. As Lisa's art career blossomed, Robert's treatment of her worsened. He grew increasingly dismissive, often making snide remarks about her little hobbies. One evening, during a dinner with his business associates, Robert remarked, "Lisa's been busy with her arts and crafts. It keeps her out of trouble, I suppose." The table erupted in laughter, and Lisa felt her stomach churn with anger. That night, Lisa confronted Robert for the first time. "Why do you belittle me in front of your friends?" she demanded. Robert waved her off, claiming he was just joking. His nonchalance stoked a fire in Lisa that had been smoldering for years. She vowed to never let his words define her again. Lisa poured her anger into her art, creating a series of paintings that captured the pain of feeling invisible. Each piece was a catharsis, a step toward reclaiming her sense of self. When she submitted the series to a prestigious gallery, she did so without hesitation. To her surprise, the gallery not only accepted her work but also offered her a solo exhibition. The day she received the news, Lisa felt a newfound strength. She no longer needed Robert's approval or anyone else's. For the first time in years, she looked in the mirror and saw a woman capable of standing on her own. The night of the solo exhibition was surreal. The gallery was packed with guests, all eager to see the work of Lisa mingled discreetly, overhearing whispers of admiration. One critic described her pieces as hauntingly beautiful, while another praised their emotional depth. It was a moment Lisa would never forget, a validation of her journey and her talent. Returning home that night, Lisa felt a pang of guilt for keeping her success from Robert. But when she thought of his derisive comments and dismissive attitude, the guilt quickly faded. This was her triumph, and she wasn't ready to share it. Not yet. Lisa continued to live her double life, balancing her roles as a wife and a rising artist. The two worlds were starkly different, but for the first time in years, Lisa felt whole. She had found a piece of herself that she thought had been lost forever. Lisa's reputation as an artist grew steadily, and her work began to command higher prices. One of her pieces, titled Shattered Light, was selected for a prestigious charity auction. The event drew an elite crowd, including art collectors, critics, and business moguls. Lisa, as always, attended anonymously, blending into the background to observe the reactions to her work. The painting was displayed prominently, its vibrant colors and intricate details capturing the attention of everyone in the room. As the bidding began, Lisa's heart pounded. She watched in awe as the price climbed higher and higher, eventually selling for a record-breaking sum. The applause that followed felt like a celebration of her resilience and determination. For Lisa, it was more than just a sale, it was a symbol of everything she had overcome. What Lisa didn't know was that Robert had also been invited to the auction. One of his colleagues had suggested it as an opportunity to network with influential figures. Robert, ever eager to expand his circle, agreed to attend. He wandered through the gallery, uninterested in most of the pieces, until he stumbled upon Shattered Light. Something about the painting caught his attention. He stared at it for a long time, his brow furrowing as he tried to place the familiar style. When the auctioneer announced the artist as Robert chuckled dismissively. "Another one of these self-important types," he remarked to his colleagues. He had no idea that the artist he was mocking was standing just a few feet away, her identity hidden behind the crowd. As the evening progressed, Lisa noticed Robert in the crowd. Her initial instinct was to leave, but a part of her wanted him to see the life she had built without him. When the auctioneer invited the featured artists to take the stage, Lisa hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped forward. The room fell silent as she approached the microphone. "Thank you for supporting my work," she began. "It has been a journey of rediscovery, of learning to value myself and my voice." Robert's eyes widened in shock as he realized the truth. His wife, the woman he had belittled and dismissed for years, was the artist everyone was applauding. The room erupted in applause, but Robert remained frozen, the weight of his actions sinking in. For the first time, he saw Lisa not as a housewife or a background figure but as a force to be reckoned with. The aftermath of the auction was a whirlwind. Lisa's work was featured in multiple publications, and her name became synonymous with resilience and empowerment. Meanwhile, Robert found himself the subject of ridicule. His colleagues, who had witnessed his dismissive remarks, couldn't help but mock his ignorance. "Looks like your wife is the real star in the family," one of them quipped. Robert's humiliation was compounded by the realization that he had been wrong about Lisa all along. He began to reflect on his behavior, haunted by the memory of her standing confidently on that stage. For the first time in years, Robert felt truly alone. Unable to ignore the growing chasm between them, Robert approached Lisa one evening. "I owe you an apology," he began, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "I've been blind to your talents and your worth. I was wrong to treat you the way I did." Lisa listened silently, her expression unreadable. She appreciated his acknowledgement, but she knew that words alone couldn't erase the pain he had caused. "I'm not the same person I was, Robert," she replied. "I've found my strength, and I won't let anyone take that away from me, not even you." Lisa threw herself into her art, embracing her newfound independence. She traveled for exhibitions, collaborated with other artists, and mentored young women who had faced similar struggles. Her days were filled with purpose, and her nights were no longer weighed down by Robert's negativity. For the first time in years, Lisa felt truly free. Robert, meanwhile, struggled to adapt to the changes in their relationship. He tried to be supportive, but his efforts often fell short. Lisa appreciated his attempts, but she knew that their dynamic had shifted irreparably. The life they had shared was gone, replaced by a new reality that she had no intention of compromising. Months later, Robert invited Lisa to dinner, hoping to mend their fractured bond. Over a quiet meal, he shared his reflections. "You've taught me more about strength and perseverance than I ever imagined," he admitted. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to try to be a better partner, if you'll let me." Lisa studied him carefully, searching for sincerity in his words. She saw a man humbled by his mistakes, willing to learn and grow. "I'm willing to try," she said cautiously, "but things have to change. This time, I need to come first." Lisa spent weeks reflecting on Robert's apology and the possibility of reconciling. It wasn't an easy decision. She thought about the years of neglect and humiliation, the weight of his words, and how they had crushed her spirit. At the same time, she couldn't ignore the changes she saw in him. Robert had been humbled, his bravado stripped away, replaced by genuine remorse. For the first time in their marriage, he seemed willing to listen. One evening, as the sun set outside her studio, Lisa sat Robert down for a serious conversation. "I need you to understand something," she began, her tone firm but calm. "I've found myself again, and I won't lose that for anyone, not even you. If we're going to rebuild this marriage, it has to be on new terms. I need you to respect me, to value me, and to support my dreams the way I've supported yours." Robert nodded solemnly. "I understand, Lisa," he said, his voice heavy with sincerity. "I know I've failed you in the past, but I want to do better. I want us to be equals, partners in every sense of the word." Lisa studied him carefully, searching for any trace of insincerity. She didn't see any. "Then let's try," she said finally. "But remember, this is your last chance. If you ever make me feel small again, I'm done." From that moment, their relationship began a slow transformation. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when old patterns threatened to resurface. But Lisa held firm to her boundaries, and Robert worked to prove that he was truly committed to change. Their marriage was no longer about one person dominating the other, it was a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. As Lisa's story spread, she began to receive letters and messages from people inspired by her journey. Women shared their own tales of resilience, of finding strength in the face of adversity. Some were artists like Lisa, struggling to balance their passions with the demands of life. Others were individuals who had never picked up a paintbrush but found comfort in her words. Each letter was a reminder of the impact Lisa's art and her story had on the world. One message stood out in particular. It was from a woman named Eleanor, who ran a community center for women recovering from difficult circumstances. Eleanor invited Lisa to visit the center and share her story with the women there. Lisa hesitated at first, unsure if she was ready to speak about her experiences in such a personal setting. But as she read Eleanor's heartfelt letter again, she realized that her story could offer hope to those who needed it most. The day Lisa visited the center was one she would never forget. She sat in a circle with a group of women, each of whom had faced unimaginable hardships. Lisa shared her journey, from the humiliation she endured to the strength she found in her art. The women listened intently, their eyes filled with understanding and empathy. When she finished, one of them spoke up. "Thank you," the woman said, her voice trembling. "You've shown us that it's possible to start over, no matter how broken we feel." Lisa left the center feeling a profound sense of connection. She realized that her art was more than a personal outlet, it was a bridge, connecting her to others who shared her struggles. Inspired by the experience, Lisa began hosting workshops at the center, teaching the women how to express their emotions through painting. It became one of the most fulfilling aspects of her career. As Lisa's work in the community grew, so did her relationship with Robert. He began attending her exhibitions, not out of obligation but out of genuine pride and admiration. Watching him interact with her fellow artists, Lisa saw a side of him she hadn't seen in years, a man who was humble, supportive, and eager to learn. It wasn't a perfect relationship, but it was one they were rebuilding together. Robert also made changes in his own life. He stepped back from his grueling work schedule, prioritizing time with Lisa and their shared interests. They started taking weekend trips to art galleries and scenic locations, rekindling the sense of adventure that had been missing from their marriage. On these trips, they talked openly about their hopes, fears, and dreams, laying the groundwork for a healthier future. Lisa, too, found herself growing in ways she hadn't expected. For years, she had defined herself by her pain, using it as fuel for her art. But as she healed, her work began to evolve. Her paintings were no longer just expressions of struggle, they became celebrations of resilience, of joy, of life's beauty. Critics noticed the shift, praising her ability to capture both the light and dark aspects of the human experience. Lisa's career reached new heights, with her work featured in international exhibitions and acclaimed by critics around the world. Yet, despite her success, she remained grounded, never forgetting the journey that had brought her here. She continued to mentor young artists, sharing her story and encouraging them to pursue their passions unapologetically. One of Lisa's proudest moments came when she was invited to curate a gallery dedicated to women in the arts. The exhibition showcased works by both established and emerging artists, celebrating their unique voices and perspectives. As Lisa walked through the gallery on opening night, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was more than an achievement, it was a testament to the power of community, of lifting others as she climbed. At home, Lisa and Robert found a new rhythm. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was stronger than it had ever been. They supported each other's goals and celebrated each other's successes, creating a partnership built on mutual respect and love. For Lisa, the greatest triumph wasn't her success as an artist, it was her ability to reclaim her life and find happiness on her own terms. Lisa's story became a beacon of hope for many, spreading far beyond the walls of galleries or the boundaries of her town. Invitations poured in for her to share her experiences at universities, conferences, and even women's shelters. Her first speaking engagement was at a prestigious art summit, where the room was packed with aspiring artists, critics, and educators. Standing at the podium, Lisa felt a surge of nervousness but also a deep sense of purpose. "When I started painting again," Lisa began, her voice steady but emotional, "it wasn't to prove anything to anyone. It was to find myself, to remind myself that I was more than the titles or labels others gave me. I had spent years allowing someone else's opinions to dictate my worth, but art helped me reclaim it. And I learned that the most important validation comes from within." The audience hung on her every word, moved by her honesty and resilience. Lisa spoke about the power of perseverance, of rediscovering one's passions, and of standing tall even when life tries to knock you down. She encouraged the audience to embrace their flaws and turn their pain into beauty, just as she had done with her paintings. When she finished, the applause was thunderous, and Lisa realized that her journey had come full circle, not just as an artist but as a voice for those still finding their way. That evening, as Lisa mingled with attendees, a young woman approached her with tears in her eyes. "Your story gave me the courage to leave a toxic relationship," she confessed. "Thank you for showing me that it's never too late to start over." Lisa embraced her, feeling a deep connection to this stranger who, like her, had found strength in vulnerability. It was moments like these that reaffirmed Lisa's belief that sharing her story was as powerful as creating her art. Years later, Lisa found herself standing in the middle of her studio, surrounded by canvases that told the story of her journey. Each painting represented a chapter of her life, a life that had been marked by pain, resilience, and triumph. Her studio was no longer just a workspace, it had become a sanctuary, a place where she could reflect on how far she had come. The walls of her studio were adorned with photographs and letters from people whose lives she had touched. Among them was a framed photograph of her standing next to Clara, the art teacher who had believed in her when she doubted herself most. Another was a letter from the young woman she had met at the art summit, thanking Lisa for inspiring her to pursue her dreams. As Lisa picked up her brush and approached a blank canvas, she felt a familiar sense of excitement. Life, she realized, was still an unfinished masterpiece, and she had the power to paint it however she chose. The lessons she had learned about self-worth, resilience, and the importance of following her passions were etched into every stroke of her work. That evening, Robert joined Lisa in the studio, carrying a cup of tea. Their relationship had evolved into a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. Robert had spent years proving his sincerity, and while Lisa knew their marriage would never return to what it once was, she valued the growth they had experienced together. They weren't perfect, but they were learning, and that was enough. As Lisa worked on her latest painting, she smiled at Robert. "What are you working on this time?" he asked, genuinely curious. Lisa paused, looking at the blank canvas before her. "Something new," she replied, her voice full of hope. And with that, she dipped her brush into the vibrant paint and began again.